So the 2015 NFL Scouting Combine has come to a wrap, and some players most certainly helped their draft stock, perhaps exponentially, and some players perhaps hurt themselves quite significantly. So with that said, I'm unveiling my post-Combine 2015 NFL mock draft. You can check out the 2-round edition in the description box down below. Now, I will confess that this particular one was based mostly off of team needs. Not in every single case, but a lot of it. And especially at this period of time, these mock drafts tend to be more need-based for teams. So that's not the case for every single team and where I had them pick and who I had them pick. But in a lot of cases, it is a need-based mock draft. It's not necessarily an indication of who I think, again, a team should pick. It's just playing out a scenario based off of team needs and what players would eventually potentially be available at what spots. Some of the things that stand out to me, I think after this combine, I think any doubts should be laid to rest that Marcus Mariota deserves to be a very high pick in this 2015 NFL draft. And as a result, I have quarterbacks going 1 and 2 with Tampa Bay selecting Jameis Winston out of Florida State, number 1, and Tennessee going with Marcus Mariota at number 2. I go back and forth on whether or not Ken Whisenhunt would want a young quarterback like Mariota. What would the scheme fit be like after going 2-14 last year? Are the Titans really going to want to take another chance on a young quarterback like they did a few years ago, which ultimately failed in Jake Locker? But when I look at it, if you're the Titans, you don't have much of anything at all. You have no identity on either side of the ball. One thing you do have, though, is some nice weapons on the offense in the passing game. When you look at guys like Kendall Wright, hopefully a returning back to health Justin Hunter, a Delaney Walker. It's not the worst situation in the world to bring a young quarterback into, and as a result, I think the Titans would be insane if they didn't take whichever quarterback was going to be available at number 2. Some of the other notable picks, some of the picks that seem to make the most sense to me, both in terms of a value standpoint and a need standpoint. I look at the Oakland Raiders at number 4. If you're going to go with Derek Carr, and that's going to be your guy, then you've got to help him out. Now, there could be a bit of a decision there with new head coach Jack Del Rio if a Leonard Williams was available at number 4. However, in this scenario, he's not because he's already gone to Jacksonville at number 3. I think the Raiders would be insane if they didn't take this Julio Jones clone, my money, the number 1 wide receiver in this draft class, and Kevin White. I think that's the guy that they must take. You've got to help out Derek Carr. You must get more pieces around him. I look at the Bears at number 7, the pick that I keep coming back to at least right now and have for the past couple of weeks is Danny Shelton of the Washington Huskies. Here's the Bears switching to a new 3-4 defense under head coach John Fox and defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, and frankly, they don't have much in the way of personnel to be able to run it. Danny Shelton is that guy that could be that foundation. He is that guy that could be the building block for that entire 3-4 defense, where so much attention is always paid to the pass rushers in the 3-4, and understandably so, especially on the outside. It's that nose tackle. It's that Ted Washington type of guy, that Jamal Williams type of guy, that Casey Hampton type of guy that really sits there and helps everything that you do in that 3-4. Everything is built around what you would do there. I also look at the Falcons being able to get a guy like Dante Fowler out of Florida. He's very familiar with Dan Quinn and Quinn's time at Florida. You look at Fowler, though, an explosive edge rusher who uses his hands incredibly well, but is more than just a one-dimensional player. This is a guy that can consistently get in the backfield, both as a pass rusher and playing the run, and he can also drop back into coverage. I think a tremendous value, and I maybe would even be surprised if he ended up being there for the Falcons at number 8. Another pick that I think really works out here is the Cleveland Browns taking Amari Cooper at number 12. Now, for my money, I like Amari Cooper as a prospect, and I think he's going to be a very, very good NFL wide receiver. However, in this draft, to me, he is only the 4th, maybe 5th best wide receiver. And part of the reason for that, he does a lot of things well. He's really smooth in so many things that he does. But I don't know if he has that dominant type of abilities. I don't know if he makes those type of explosive mega plays that you need out of a modern number 1 NFL wide receiver. Again, I think he's going to be a very productive NFL player. I think he's going to be a very good receiver, perhaps even a Pro Bowl talent. But this is a very good wide receiver class. So for me to sit there and say Amari Cooper is only the 4th or 5th best wide receiver in this class isn't necessarily a knock at all, because this is a good class. While not quite as deep as the 2014 unit, it really doesn't lag that far behind. And the Cleveland Browns desperately need help at wide receiver. They just need good football players, and Amari Cooper will be about as good as they could get at this particular point in time. And you look at another team like the, let's say the San Francisco 49ers. Now, a lot of people will have them taking a wide receiver in the first round because they need one. They desperately, badly need one. They need an explosive number one type of guy that can also stretch defenses vertically down the field. But in this case, the top 4 wide receivers have already gone off of the board. So I think Malcom Brown out of Texas is a nice consolation prize. You promoted your defensive line coach, Jim Tomsula, to be head coach. Justin Smith has retired. This is a 49ers team that's identity is still going to be built around defense and running the football. And in this particular case, at this particular time, Malcom Brown represents pretty good value and a really good schematic fit for what the 49ers want to do. He could be a bit of an undersized nose in their scheme. He could also be a very effective 3-4 defensive end. In terms of names that helped or hurt themselves, you know, you'll always hear about the guys like the Chris Conleys from Georgia that just exploded at the combine, but you'll see that I don't have him in the first 2 rounds at this particular moment. Just because you put up things at the combine doesn't automatically guarantee you're going to vault up 5 or 6 rounds of consideration. But there were also guys, I think, that hurt themselves with their combine performances. I look at Randy Gregory from Nebraska. I think teams should have significant concerns about the fact that he reported to the combine at 235 pounds. It could lead to some questions about what his playing weight is going to be, what his position is going to be, how dedicated is he to the game. You know, there are some serious concerns there, I feel. You look at a guy as well like a Shaq Thompson out of Washington, somebody that I'm very big on, but he's a guy that didn't test out all that well on the combine, especially at the 40. There's a lot of questions about what position is going to be his natural fit at the NFL level, and I envision at this moment to be some type of hybrid safety. He's a guy that could drop, and I have to be honest, I have to confess, as a Bears fan, when I was putting together this mock draft, it ended up working out where it was Danny Shelton in the first round and Shaq Thompson in the second round. If that was the first 2 rounds of this draft for the Chicago Bears, there would perhaps be a little ejaculate emanating from my pee-pee. I'm just saying. But you'll see other guys that dropped a little bit. I think P.J. Williams from Florida State may be disappointed with his speed at the combine in particular. I look at a guy like Paul Dawson out of TCU, a guy that wasn't naturally going to test out that well at the combine, really didn't help himself, just like his teammate safety Chris Hackett didn't. But these are 2 guys, you might question their speed at the NFL level, but these were guys, yes, they played in a system that fit them really well in that TCU 4-2-5 under Gary Patterson, but these are guys that are just football players, in particular Paul Dawson. And even though he dropped outside of my top 2 rounds here, here's a guy in Dawson that somebody's going to get, and somebody's going to get a hell of a football player. We see this happen every year. The combine blows up certain people, moves them way up the board, perhaps higher than they should, and some guys that shouldn't drop end up dropping because their measurables or their workout numbers aren't the best and end up seeing teams get steals in the middle rounds, getting really good football players that just maybe didn't run the fastest 40. In terms of the themes of this draft, some of the themes that are going to play out will be who's going to be that number 3 quarterback. In this case, I have the Houston Texans taking Garrett Grayson out of Colorado State in the middle portion of round number 2. I think at this point in time, he's the number 3 quarterback in this draft. You're going to see as many as 6, perhaps 7 wide receivers go in round number 1. The funny thing is, last year, as great as the wide receiver class was, only 5 of them went in round 1. This year, you could have 6 or maybe even 7. Running back is a really deep position as well, just like with wide receiver. The depth isn't so much in the first round, but it's more in rounds 2, 3, and 4. If you're a running back needy team, you have a lot of different options and a lot of different places that you can explore, so you're going to be able to get that help if you so desire to go out and get that help. You're also going to see edge rushers go early and often in the 2015 NFL Draft. With the increase of importance in passing games to NFL offenses, it makes getting to the quarterback an even bigger premium than it perhaps ever has. And as a result, in a class loaded with talented edge rushers, you're going to see a lot of them go, like in this particular case, I have 6 edge rushers going in round number 1. It wouldn't surprise me if you ended up seeing 7 or 8, not to mention several defensive linemen. It's all about that front 7. It's all about being able to get pressure on the quarterback. It's not the greatest class of secondary players, in particular safety, But even the corner position, you had some guys really work out well at the combine, like Trae Waynes and La'el Collins, and you'll see them as my top 2 corners on the board. Ronald Darby from Florida State might surprise you a little bit that I have him as a number 3 corner. But the last 2 years I watched him at Florida State, I always thought he was better, frankly, than P.J. Williams. And I think some of what I saw at the combine bore that out. But this is not a great corner class. It's not a great safety class. It's just not a really good secondary class. Another thing that'll be interesting to see is where the offensive tackles are going to go, because I don't think this offensive tackle class is that great. You'll see several of them probably go in round number 1, but there's a lot of questions about all of them. What position are they best suited for? Do they have the feet to play left tackle? Or do they have the arm length to play left tackle? Or do they have this? Or do they have that? Just a lot of questions, and when you look at some of the highly drafted tackles of recent years, the guys like the Matt Khalils and the Ereck Fishers and the Luke Jokels, I think that's going to give teams some pause from taking some of these offensive tackles as high as they have been in previous years, because what was once thought to be one of the safer picks you could make in the first round maybe hasn't turned out to be that case over the past 2 to 3 years in particular. So again, you can look at my 2-round mock draft down below in the description box. You can see your team down there. Let me know what you think about what I did for your team. Let me know what you like about it or what you don't like about it, how you see things playing out, and what you think in general about my post-combine 2015 NFL mock draft.